Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host, and I'm joined by the film encyclopedia man, Boaz Dix. We are a couple of filmmakers on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode we pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on VOD. Myself and Boaz pick our favourite film from that topic, or team up against a guest and battle it out to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Please enjoy. Hello, my name is Korg. I'm like the podcast host in here. As you can see, I'm now white. That pesky Loki turned me into a human, but don't let that intimidate you, though. My moustache is very small. Just a little Hitler joke for you before we get started. Now back to me, as that lead balloon hit the floor.
Yeah, went straight through the ground,
man. All right. That sounded better in my head, but there we go.
Yeah, no, Taika Waititi would be very proud. It was incredibly awkward.
Thank you. Imaginary Taika. This episode, as Thor Love and Thunder is hitting the big screens, we're taking a break actually from selecting Marvel films. We're going to actually go with a director, and that director, of course, is Taika Waititi, the director of Thor Love and Thunder. And we have guests this week, which is very exciting, from the Haven't Seen It podcast. Tommy and Tim, how are you guys?
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having us, guys.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you for having us on. We're doing wonderful. Beautiful Sunday. Looking forward to Thor, Love, and Thunder.
Yeah, it's going to be a great one.
And of course, I'm joined by a guy who loves kicking stuff, pushing stuff, throwing stuff, doing graffiti, and of course, blowing stuff up. It's Boaz Dix. How are you, sir?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm good.
Good. So, Tommy and Tim, tell us a little bit about your podcast. I've listened to a few. They're really fun. Yeah, tell us about it.
Yeah, so our podcast, pretty much our premise is that we cover a movie that one of us hasn't seen before. So, for example, I haven't seen such classics such as like The Godfather or Dr. Strangelove, which is one of our more recent episodes. So it's one of those things. Yeah, exactly. Like it's like one of those things you hear that you're like, how have you never seen this movie? So that's where our premise came from. Timmy has never seen Scream or Army of Darkness before, so it's like similar. Where it's like, come on, you gotta watch these movies.
October, I'm going to be embarrassing myself during Halloween when I'm just like, Tommy, you can pick whatever classic horror movie you want. I haven't seen it. Just your pick of the litter, buddy. You can do it.
I get free reign.
Oh my goodness!
But it's been great just discovering like new movies and stuff like that, and talking about like why does this movie work and like why do people still love this.
Yeah, I mean, I have certain shame in terms of my films that I haven't watched. Like I haven't seen The Exorcist. I feel quite ashamed about that. Yeah.
We're doing that in October.
Oh, nice. I always mean to watch that, and it just never seems to happen.
Yeah.
Boaz, have you got like any shame? Oh yeah, your biggest shame is you haven't seen Aliens, have you?
No, I haven't seen Aliens. Yeah, yeah, that's definitely missing in my thing.
So you've seen Alien, but not Aliens.
Yeah,
Aliens is great.
And Top Gun, I still haven't watched Top Gun, and you really need to get on that.
We did Top Gun recently. I wasn't a fan, to be honest.
Yeah,
even though Tim was. It's a whole other topic, but not a big fan of that movie.
Well, I was a fan because it's not great.
Yeah,
but it works somehow.
Cheesy.
A lot of people saw that as like a military advert. But,
oh yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's exactly what it is.
A Navy recruitment ad.
Yeah, pretty much. So, Thor: Love and Thunder. Are we excited for this one? For Thor to return?
Definitely. Thor: the Ragnarok was such a great movie. It was like really just took the character from a point where he was really boring and kind of stale in like the previous MCU movies, I felt. And Taika came in and just like blew up everything that we knew about Thor and just made him the character that we all now love. After watching two of his movies this week again, it's just one of those things that his touch is going to be great and hilarious, and this is going to be a fun movie. I can't wait.
I'm probably the least Marvel guy out of the three of you here, but I am looking forward to this. Also, one of the favorite parts of Infinity War was just Thor hanging out with the Guardians of the Galaxy. It didn't seemed like it would make sense, and I know they're going to be in part of this movie at least. So seeing that connection again, I think will be a lot of fun. And Taika's a great director, so I think it's just like it's a good match. I am looking forward to it. I'll probably go see it opening weekend when it comes out.
Yeah, definitely. Really liked Thor Ragnarok. I mean, we've done it on this podcast. Generally quite excited to see Christian Bale as a villain. I think he's a really good actor, so that should be fun.
You mean Korg, right? You're excited to see Korg the most.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Korg. A little, yeah.
Well, of course, he's the best character.
Obviously.
He's the best character. It's his film, you know.
Yeah. They just call it Korg and Thunder.
Yes. I loved actually the latest trailer where Korg introduces Thor's ex-girlfriend and here is Jodie Foster.
Yeah.
And that made me giggle a lot. Knowing that Boaz is not a fan of Jodie Foster, I was like, that's hilarious.
That is pretty funny.
You're not on the Jodie Foster train?
Not really, yeah. I'm not. I think we've discussed this, haven't we? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just she's never sat well with me. Nothing personal. I don't hate her or anything.
I just thought Boaz when I heard that.
Yeah.
Boaz is going to love that. Yeah. Cool. Shall we go with our pick then first, Boaz?
Yep, let's do it.
We've covered Thor Ragnarok before in our MCU sequels episode. And obviously you guys went first with your pick. And I just really like Hunt for the Wilder People. I think I chose this one. I think might have been my turn to choose. Yeah, I just really like this film. I think it's laugh out loud funny at times. It's got real heart to it. Yeah? What do you think, Boaz?
Yeah, I thought it was awesome. Yeah, really quite funny. Pretty touching. I love the cinematography in it.
Anytime you can get Sam Neill hunting around in the tropics, that looks like the Jurassic Park set. You know, I'm all in. You know?
It would have been great if they'd somehow put this into the Jurassic Park timeline. You know, after the events of the movies, he just goes off to New Zealand. You know, I've had enough of dinosaurs.
It's like that movie Split, where at the end of it,
this should have been
at the end of it, it's like a Jurassic Park sequel. It's like, oh, this is the tag. It's actually what's his name from Jurassic Park the whole time.
Yeah, that would be a great twist. Yeah.
And giant pigs are the scariest dinosaur in that film.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch this and pretend this was Jurassic World Dominion. I'm just not going to go see that, and I'm just going to pretend this was that.
Yeah. I think that's probably best. Yeah.
So initial thoughts on the film, Tommy? Do you like it? Not like it?
Yeah, I really liked it. This was our first time seeing it, or mine at least, and I thought it was a really charming movie. Sam Neill was great at first as being a lovable grump, and Taika just had great directing. There's so many sweeping shots of just showing how crazy the New Zealand wilderness is, and it just really just got you right in the movie and right in. It was very charming and sweet, and I love the little kid in this movie too. He's hilarious.
Yeah,
I also thought it was impressive to see, because more of Taika's later work, he's had a lot more budget behind him. I think the budget on this is $2.5 million, and how he was able to stretch that small of a budget into making something that seems like a sweeping, grander adventure. You know, a lot of times you're going to do that in the woods, obviously, but the reason that they're in the woods, the reason that they're staying there, I think he found a really good way in the script to get them out there, to have them adventuring, versus other movies in that budget that'll just be well, it's in the woods because we can't afford anything else, right? So I thought it was a really nice story.
So Boaz, what happens in Hunt for the Wilder People?
It follows a character called Ricky, who is a troubled teenager in New Zealand who can't seem to, he's an orphan and nobody really wants to adopt him. They give him to a couple. What was her name?
Bella,
that was the one, yeah. So Bella and her husband Heck, played by Sam Neill, and so she takes him in and is very nice to him and very loving, and then she dies, unfortunately. And her much gruffer sort of husband called Heck,
leave me alone.
Yeah, he really doesn't care for Ricky much at all. He's going to let the fucking social services take him back. And so Ricky decides to disappear into the woods and live there. Heck goes to fetch him, hurts his ankle, and they stay in the woods for a few weeks. But when they come out of the woods, everybody is searching for them because they think Heck had kidnapped Ricky. And because Heck has got a previous criminal record, they just decide to live in the woods while being chased by the authorities.
Nice. So, directing then, I loved how you get an idea about Ricky Baker's character before he even says anything. When Paula Hall describes what Ricky's like, you have some fast cutting of all the different bad things he's done. But at the same time, like, he's walking around the house, and when Bella says, he's home now, he'll be okay. And then Paula says, okay, well, I like your enthusiasm. Good. And then there's just a very simple, like, wide shot of Ricky just getting back into the police car. I just found that was pretty funny. And you're like, yep, this kid could be trouble for these guys. So it's just kind of amazing how you get quite a strong idea about what this kid could be like without him even having any dialogue in that scene.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Directed in general is just like really good in terms of shots and just showing perspective of Ricky himself and stuff. Like the one scene where when Bella pretty much shows Ricky, like, here's how you kill a boar, kills the boar right in front of him. And even though Ricky's like playing this hard, like, oh, I'm a tough gangster exterior, the second he sees that and sees the blank knife, he's like, oh god.
Yeah.
And it's just great, just showing the perspective of Ricky right there.
Yeah. I loved how that was cut as well. So what was it when you first that scene you were talking about, Martin, where you first see Ricky in his past? That really reminded me of like Edgar Wright. You know how he does those kind of smash cuts of like a bunch of funny shit.
Oh, for sure.
And then back, that really reminded me of that. I thought that was brilliant. And yeah, when he sees her killing the boar, I just love how that's cut, of like quick cut to, the boar and her and struggling and her with the knife in the air, and then boom, 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 and then the boar is dead, and guts fall out, and then his face, like, and then I just love how it goes that fast, and then it slows up on him, and then she's like, oh, we've got dinner, and everything calms down, but he's just like, and he just collapses. I think the comic timing for that is just brilliant.
Yeah, that's actually my favorite scene, because it's basically like a psycho comedy shower scene, with the close-up shots, like just before she's stabbing the boar, and I kind of like the little like flash frame of red. It's just red before Ricky faints, just obviously getting you into the perspective of Ricky. I thought that was just amazing.
I definitely echo the sentiments. I think that was my favorite scene, especially just like how they didn't really show the violence itself, where they kind of cut away from the actual violence, and all you see was really just like the knife being red right there. And it showed you everything you need to know about Ricky's character in that moment right there. That this guy, he's pretty much put up a facade.
Yeah, it's very much the shower scene from Psycho, but done for laughs,
Yeah.
There is another pig attack scene. There's some nice knife shots in there, but it feels like the effects were a tad distracting. But I loved the shot when Sam Neill dives into the ravine. The camera kind of leans over following him. That was kind of cool. Probably not Sam Neill doing that, probably the stunt guy. But I preferred the first pig attack scene for me.
I would agree. Tommy and I were talking before. We agreed that was probably like our favorite scene in the movie. I also really liked the scene where they first find the hut. They just get out of the cabin and they find out what's been being said about them, and then those rangers come into the hut, and it's like very tense, and they don't even want to listen to what Heck has to say. They're like, oh, you kidnapped this kid, you're a molester. And then Ricky has that funny little like monologue about like how he had to adjust his leg and how he had to do like all these things to him, and they're all looking at Heck like, what did you do to this kid? Like, you're that guy, huh?
He doesn't find out until afterwards.
Yeah, that was funny. Yeah,
he's like, oh shit, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. And he wouldn't play with me, but he said I could play with myself. And he's like,
in the corner, just the park rangers being like, oh my god, this is worse than we thought.
Yeah, that was funny. Some of my favorite scenes are like montages or whatever. I love that big montage where they're running away, and I don't know, there's just so much going on. There's so much like unique camera work of like the newspapers falling into the shot, stuff from the headlines, and them running and zooming into bits of the forest to see like guys with guns and helicopters and stuff. That had a lot going on in like a really short time. I quite like that montage thing.
I did like how they told the passage of time, how it wasn't pretty much just like a title card that was like 6 months later or something that they're in the forest. There's more dialogue, more naturalistic right there. Yeah. And in terms of like you were saying right there, just there's so many just like subtle things right there. It's ridiculous. And like the montage where like they're going over Ricky's survivor skills. And you pretty much learn, okay, Ricky's learning how to like live on the wilderness. You don't need a big scene. You just need a quick montage. It's like, we can go over this real quick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And there's that amazing shot that just pans on its axis to show progression of time during the winter months of Ricky Baker and Hector being followed by the cops and child welfare. There's even some moments where the same character overlaps in the same scene. So you see two Ricky Bakers at some point, which I thought was pretty bold, yet not confusing because you know what's going on. It's just a great, simple, clever way to make to do a montage. And it's kind of like a signature shot now for Taika. There's a small one in Jojo Rabbit as well, which is pretty cool, I thought.
Yeah, no, I really actually liked that shot. I think that was probably my favorite one. Just that 360 camera. It reminded me of like those Panasonic images where you could move the camera, and I don't know, it just reminded me of that. And I just really liked it, and I agree. It's like a unique way to show the passage of time. Like you turn from this part of the forest to another, and then you've got like the rangers there, and them later, at some other point in time, and the cops, and I just really liked that. I thought that was an interesting shot to tell a lot of story.
I think that works in this movie's favor too. I think it's really well paced. What this movie's 100 minutes? It's like 1 hour 41 running time, right? It's nice and brisk. It doesn't really waste your time. It tells the story really effectively. And it does that through these kind of, montage sequences, through these different ways of moving the story along without having to keep you there. Because, you could have spent a lot more time on Ricky developing hunting skills. That could have just been a 10-minute moment, but it isn't. It isn't that. And I think that really works in this film's favor because it is a serious story, but Taika is always very good at balancing serious stories and putting a lot of levity and lightness to this. And I think him, working with like a child actor helps bring that levity because it brings that humor and that juvenile sensibility to it, right? And it's I think that's one of the stronger points of the movie for me is just how well paced it is and how not strung out the story is when it could have been, because it passes through a decent amount of time.
I thought the big action scene near the end with all the vehicles and helicopters chasing Ricky and Hector in like the red Jeep was fine. Nothing too flashy at all, but Paula and Andy in the massive armored car was quite funny. But I'm not sure you entirely needed that action scene to be so large in scale. It's done for laughs with like a Thelma and Louise reference, I guess. I enjoyed the scene, but it's definitely not the funniest scene. I mean, did that work for you guys?
It was good in terms of saying like the scale of like they're not getting out of this, but you can clearly see that's where a lot of the budget went towards this movie.
It's like 2 helicopters, and
yeah, exactly. They cost a lot. you need the scale.
It was initially $2 million, and they had to put it to 2.5 just for that one sequence.
Yeah, because there's helicopters, there's even tanks and guys in the army and stuff. Like this is a bit overkill. I don't think this will actually happen, but it's pretty good. I sort of get what you mean that it wasn't like strictly necessary.
Yeah.
It's a nice juxtaposition from like the rest of the story being so small to just see that like, no, this really is a nationwide manhunt, because they do like the television interviews and stuff like that. Like you realize the entire nation is kind of in on this chase. It's like their national story at the moment. So just seeing that, like, no, this is really what it is. It helps reinforce that point, I guess, a little bit. But with a $2.5 million budget, maybe the money could have been utilized a little more effectively. But
yeah, I guess if you're going to try and do that kind of sort of scene, you kind of need to push it a bit further for me.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
Yeah, I kind of get you. Like, so, say, for example, the Blues Brothers, that last chase scene at the end is absolutely, it's like everybody knows that scene. And not only do they have like dozens and dozens of police cars, but there is just absolutely chaos. They're going into fucking storefronts and through other cars and vans. Like they really just go all in. I think with this, you got so many tanks and armored vehicles and a helicopter and armed men. And really all they do is like they turn around, some of the cars hit each other, and then they crash into a fence and flip over. So it's like, I kind of see what you mean. Like, maybe they should have just been like, we're going to go nuts. Let's really go for it.
They should have gone over the top because really all it just does was show the scale. And other than that, it was just like, it wasn't really that memorable. Other than like seeing like, oh, there's a bunch of cars and tanks and helicopters.
Yeah, because you kind of go, that's kind of funny. But if it was like, yeah, fuck it, let's go balls to the wall, let's actually make them do stuff, then you're like, oh, shit.
Like Ricky doing like crazy like car driving stunts or whatever while doing it or whatever. Just something to add like a little more layer of comedy or over the topness to that scene.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Also, on the Blues Brothers point, the one time I went to Chicago, I asked every single Uber driver if the roads we were driving on, I was like, do you know if this is where they were pulling off the Blues Brothers stunts? And all of them looked at me like I was talking with 5 heads.
Like, shut up, nerd.
My friends are like, Tim, you've got to stop asking people these questions. They don't know.
That's funny.
I do want to add though, like how great the pan out shots are of just them in the wilderness, just really zooming out and just showing, just like, okay, this is massive what they're in right now.
Yeah, literally miles and miles.
I definitely want to go to New Zealand at one point.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great tourism ad.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Luca in our last episode. Even though it's animation, I'm like, yeah, I really want to go to Italy right now. Because there's some points in that where like looks amazing.
Oh yeah.
I also like when they go to that sort of waterfall place and sprinkle our ashes. Like in the middle of the forest, you have just this stone and rock and like a waterfall, and I don't know, it just looked really, really nice. Just in the middle of nowhere, you had this kind of Eden. That looked great.
It's interesting as well with that scene that they didn't go down the route of the Big Lebowski and making that really funny. It was actually a poignant moment.
Yeah, it was very serious.
I do love that the movie like gives like at least characters like moments to like be human and not just like a farcical like joke.
Yeah, I do think in a lot of Taika's films, especially in the two we're talking about, the humor does overtake the emotional stuff, I would say. And I think this film is in that place as well. I mean, is it well balanced for you guys? Is the emotional stuff enough?
I think so. I think that they at least like give characters moments to breathe, like Sam Neill, like talking about how he was in jail, or in like, you know, or just like the shot of just seeing Sam Neill literally just grieve over his dead wife for a moment, where like literally all you see is just him just crying over and over again. And he didn't cut away for a little bit, and he didn't like immediately cut away or just make that like almost into a joke or something. So I think it did balance it a little bit more. I mean, like some other type of movies like Thor, Ragnarok, where there's so much death and destruction, yet it's just laugh, 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 laugh. This doesn't have that. So,
so haven't seen it, Pod. What is your score for directing for Hunt for the Wilder People?
All right, so our score for directing is 7. So it was good. You know, good shots right here and there. Nothing like really like stood out too much. And like we said, there's some scenes that could have been played up a little bit more or a little bit like funnier or whatever.
It should also be noted our scale on our show is out of 5, so we're our job. I don't know. You kind of looked at us like stunned.
No.
Inside, I was like, "How dare you give it a 7? What's going on?" No.
I think I was kind of the same. Yeah, I was like, Jesus, that's low. Like, I think it's the fact that we are overly generous to everything.
We're easily pleased.
Yeah, some of the worst stuff, we're like, oh, is that a 7? Yeah, maybe that would be a 7. Or, you know, so our scale is really janky. It's like 6 is the worst, really, and then everything else is like,
yeah, yeah. 7 for us is mostly average.
I have no problem being cruel.
Tim's definitely more of like the hard ass for ratings, whereas I'm more generous a lot of the time. So outside our average, we get something that's okay.
Yeah. No, but don't worry about it. Don't switch up on our account.
Yeah, we're sticking to it.
So Bao has a 10 to balance things out.
Yeah, maybe.
Exactly. Perfect.
Because I mean, initially I was really thinking like a really high 8 or a low 9.
I think there is a misconception with comedy directing, actually, that to create great comedy there has to be like really creative direction and stuff. But I don't think that's the case. A lot of great comedy, it's just you have to have very simple shots, and Taika is one of those. I think there's a lot of great wide shots in here, and especially Jojo Rabbit as well. Just having a wide shot and just letting things play out, and that's the funniest way to do things, I think, sometimes. So should we go like 8.7, Boaz?
How about 8.8?
Okay, yeah, sure. So screenplay then. I think Taika Waititi always walks the line of either being hilarious or offensive. And it's no different in this film when, like, Bella dies and Taika has a cameo as this weird minister, and he talks about when you die, you see two doors with loads of confectionery in it, burgers, sweets, Coke Zero. Then he asks, what do you think is behind the second door? And then Ricky says, vegetables? That made me laugh out loud. That was so good. But the scene is so outrageous and funny about a new foster mother, happy as ever, that's just died. That's pretty ballsy.
Yeah, but doesn't somebody else go like, Jesus? And he's like, no, you'd think so, but no. He's behind the other door.
But not that.
Yeah.
And what I love is the scene Sam Neill just so pissed off, just like what the fuck is happening right now?
Yeah.
This is the minister. I feel like everybody's probably been to a funeral before where the person giving the priest or something, you're just like, this person would not get along with the person in the casket. That's all I know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of why, as you were saying, Tommy, that scene when he's actually saying goodbye to his wife near the waterfall is so much better because it's kind of more of an intimate moment for him. But certainly the scene with Taika, it's very much like set up and getting the plot going. But it treads that line, doesn't it, of just like, wow, this Taika is walking on a knife edge right here of is this like too much or just right,
You could almost see Sam Neill's character just like punch him in the face or something like that.
Yeah. I think why I love Taika Waititi films so much is because they don't suffer from a disease that a lot of films suffer from, and that's too many character syndrome. In this film, we spend a lot of time with Ricky and Hector. Both characters are very different, but quite similar at the same time. Ricky is this troublemaker kid longing to be loved properly by a family and doesn't really know the ways of the world, the real adult world, I guess. Whereas Hector leads a very simple, very cut off from the world life, seemingly not interested in people, but deep down wants to care for someone. So it's just great watching these two characters just build a relationship from a crazy situation, from hating each other to being best mates. Then after I finished writing this note and press play again, the film separates the characters, but it makes Ricky realize that he needs Hector in his life with that new family, with some great Terminator jokes thrown in there as well.
Yeah, those are the best. I'm the Terminator. You're Sarah Connor. I love that even in the deposition. But they cut to her during the court saying, and I told him that he was Sarah Connor, actually. Just how caught up she is in this one thing where it's like, all right, it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah, that was really funny.
I think one of the overall things the screenplay does really well is put the real juxtaposition between Ricky and Hector of who they are personally, where it's Ricky is your urban kid. He wants to be a hip hop rapper. He talked about, I'm going to go back to society. I'm going to become a drug dealer. I'm going to die in a drive-by shooting, right? And to heck, that's revolting. But when the heart of the movie and they start to connect a little more is when Heck's you have to go back. He's like, no, you don't get it. I don't go to another foster home. I go to a juvenile prison. He's like, what? Yeah. He didn't realize that they're keeping kids in essentially prisons down there. And with his experiences in prison, he feels like he needs to protect him too, because he doesn't want him to suffer the same fate at that age that he did at a similar age too, going to prison. So I think that that was a really nice way to, the blend of humor and heart. I think that's the really nice way of connecting them in a genuine manner and not in some kind of oh, well, we just survived 6 weeks in the wilderness. We're best friends now, right? It's no, they still kind of hated each other's guts up to this point, right? A little more connected, but they weren't best buds or anything like that. It was still no, we got to get you back, kid.
They definitely showed moments of just the characters just breathing and talking it out and just explaining stuff. And it wasn't very clunky exposition. It felt very natural and just someone talking to someone. So I definitely liked it a lot in that sense.
The fact that, Taika just commits so much time to these two characters just kind of makes the other cameo appearances feel that much more funnier as well. So I just love the balance of what characters he's going to focus on and what ones he's not. But I do have beef with this film, or rather pork to be precise. Hector says to Ricky, okay, so you ate a sausage, She sang a song and you went to sleep. And Ricky says, what? It was a relaxing song and a relaxing sausage. I don't know about you guys, but I've never eaten a relaxing sausage. They're always very hot. Usually you have to blow on them first before consuming it. Don't get me started on German sausages, especially if they're in a hot dog with loads of onions or something. Then it becomes very tricky to eat. You could get ketchup everywhere, onions everywhere. I mean...
All you've revealed is you are terrible at eating sausages. I think that's all that you've kind of demonstrated.
They just explode everywhere.
Yeah. It's like Ricky's obviously a pro at sausage, consumption.
Ricky knows how to eat a sausage.
Yeah.
I mean, have you ever had a relaxing experience eating a sausage? I have not. You have to be very careful.
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter of like how much I care if I get like sausage stains all over my shirt, and usually I mean a sausage when I'm hungover or something, so I don't care too much, I guess. But it's a ton.
Yeah.
If the bread is not right, it could get everywhere. You got to get the sauce content right.
You're making it sound like you're fucking trying to disarm a bomb here. Like this is just throw it in your face, you know?
Do you wear like a lobster bib?
Yeah. I'm not going to New Zealand for the scenery. I need to go to New Zealand to see what their sausage eating is like, to see if it's relaxing, because this is just not a concept I'm used to.
And then we're going to write to Taika after and be like, that sausage was not relaxing. What the fuck are you talking
about? Yeah, you lied to me.
So 0 out of 10 for screenplay for that?
Oh, yeah, of course.
So I was going to say, like, one of the things I really liked about the script, I do agree, like, it feels natural, where they don't really like each other, and then they get more accustomed to each other, and then they quite like each other. And I felt that was gradual enough that it was believable, especially when they have heart-to-heart to sort of understand each other's past and stuff. But I also like how they kind of sort of rub off on each other. Like, when he loses Heck, he has to like learn the knack, because this thing he was telling him about, like the knack, it's the knack. It's just how you survive, it's common sense, and he's got to like learn the knack to get himself back to Ricky. And then I also like how Sam Neill gets more and more gangster, sort of imitating Ricky. I thought that was quite funny. Like, what was it saying to those guys? Like, shit's just got real again, stuff like that when they caught them in the woods for the second time. And, repeating at the end, like, we didn't choose the Skuck's life. The Skuck's life chose us.
Yeah, what I like it at first is just how they clearly show at first how much Sam Neill just hates Ricky, and he's just not about it whatsoever. And like in the little scene where the mom is like saying the hello Ricky Baker over and over again, happy birthday, and Sam Neill is just like, what are we doing right now? And even the way that they like subtly show up things about Sam Neill's character, like how that he can't read, where at first when you see him hand the note to Ricky, you think that he already read it over and he knows what it is, and he's just like, this kid's getting kicked out. And then you actually realize, like, oh wait, like he doesn't know how to read, he doesn't know what this is. He was actually telling him, can you tell me what's on this letter?
No, that's a good point. That's a really good
So funny lines then, people. We're talking disobedience, stealing, spinning, running away, throwing rocks, kicking stuff, defacing stuff, burning stuff, loitering, and graffiti. From the child welfare officer, Paula. As part of the transition process, I'll be needing to inspect your property just to make sure that it's up to our high standards. Looks fine.
I like that. Yeah,
that was cool.
When she's inspecting the barn and she's like, call the cops. I need to call the cops to get in here. Hey, I am a cop. No, real cops with guns. Real ones.
She just constantly just shits on it. That's amazing.
Because when she as well like gets Ricky, or is it it's Heck, and then she's like, "You have the right to remain silent." Anything, and the officer is like, "Hey, they say that in America. This is New Zealand. Like, what are you doing? Plus, you're not even a cop. What are you doing?"
Just showing like how over her head she is, like how highly she thinks of herself.
Yeah.
Well, he's giving that pig a piggyback.
Yeah, that's good.
Do you remember when they met that crazy fucking guy in the in the wilderness? They were like, "Have you got a faster way to get out of here? Like a jetpack? Do you have a jetpack?" No. He was so cool. And I love where they're like, yeah, we'll escape through the tunnel. Shit, I haven't dug it yet. Yeah, I love that character. He was so stupid.
I think that's my funniest bit.
I really like the line where he's reading their wanted posters, and he's like, Faulkner is Caucasian? And he's like, well, they got that wrong because you're obviously white. That was a really funny line.
I feel like that's slightly racist towards Irish Asians from Cork.
Yeah, if you're a Caucasian. Yeah.
There we go.
That's pretty good. But
I do love her just talking about the Terminator over and over again. Where she's just like Yosei Akana. I don't know. I'm C100.
yeah.
No child left behind. No child left behind.
Yeah. Oh, and then where he was saying, "You're Sarah Connor before." What was it? She said, "You're Sarah Connor before Terminator 2" when she got jacked. You know. Yeah, you're the rubbish Sarah.
before she.
Yeah, before she started to do push-ups.
That's the one. Yeah, before she started to do
pull-ups though.
Yeah, pull-ups. Yeah, that was funny.
Ninjas, direwolves, child welfare.
Yeah,
that was fun. One of my favorites as well is, why don't you just get a new wife? There's plenty of ladies on the internet, I heard. Hector just gives him a look. Too soon? Yeah, my favorite is, Boaz already mentioned it. Yeah. Sam, what's the farthest way out of here? Jetpack? That's mine. I mean, there's loads to choose from. I think a different day, I would have picked a different one. But
I think Psycho Sam was a brilliant character. He should have gone with them.
Yeah,
he was great.
Tim, you got a favorite one?
I like the use of haikus throughout the movie. I thought that was a nice little like little pattern that they put in, which was the one that I have here. I have I liked Hex at the end. Me and this fat kid, we ran, we ate, and read books, and it was the best. Like, it was a nice little sentimental thing. But then I think the first one is Ricky being like trees, birds, rivers, skies, running with my Uncle Heck, living forever.
That was nice.
And, Heck's just looking at him, like, for at first just being like, kid, what the hell are you doing here? What's a haiku? just that look on his face, like, don't ever do that again.
I love one of his first haikus he says to Bella. It's like, Kingi, you wanker, you asshole, I hate you heaps. Please die soon, in pain. Because that's called Kingi, you wanker. And she's like, I think that's enough haikus for today.
Tommy, you got a favorite?
I also love just like the shit just got real, and I want to shout out also him naming his dogs. Where he's like, I'm still thinking something fierce to reflect his true nature, either Psycho, Megatron, or Tupac.
That was funny. Yeah, that was good.
Boaz?
Maybe the Caucasian one. I thought that was quite funny.
Screenplay score, haven't seen it. What are you going for?
All right, so we're going a little higher here. We're going with an 8. Like we said, I love the little foreshadowing they do right here. And just how they let the two characters breathe and talk it out and just like pretty much experience more stuff here. The plot itself is not the most original plot. Like we've seen stuff like this before, but they still do it in a unique way that makes it very fun.
And I don't think it needs to necessarily be original, just on Tommy's point. When it's done really well and they're able to blend originality with like a pretty common story arc, which is just like a unnatural father-son relationship, I think it does that really well and blends the humor and the heart really well. I feel like that's Taika's strength always as a screenwriter. So it was a great first-time watch for me, and it'll be added to my probably yearly rotation.
I guess it's very much a mix between The Hunt and Thelma and Louise, I guess. Those two films. Boaz, what should we go for screenplay? Like 8.5 or a bit higher?
Yeah, maybe a little higher. Maybe 8.7.
Nice.
We were closer this time. We were closer to you guys this time.
Yeah, actually, maybe give it a 6. 8.6. 8.6. My final.
8.6. Okay.
8.6. That's my
final answer?
My final answer. Yes, Tarrant.
Acting then. I love the acting during the happy birthday song for Ricky Baker's 13th birthday. Bella playing like this really tiny keyboard, only playing like 2 notes. Again, she's so into it and excited, singing Ricky Baker, Ricky Baker, or whatever at the end. It's the first time like Julian Dennison's Ricky Baker is actually really enjoying himself, but Sam Neill was just like on his face, I can't be arsed with this. To what the hell is happening? It's just so funny.
Yeah, no, that shot is just so funny because you just see just like the different reactions of how over the top she is and how much she loves it. And Sam Neill's just like, "Can I get the fuck out of this room right now? Why do I have to put up with this?"
And I mean, I think Sam Neill, obviously, he's probably the most well-regarded actor out of these, and he does a really great job in this movie. But I like how they don't tell you a ton about like their relationship, him and Bella's relationship, but you kind of get that he got a lot more out of life with having somebody that enjoyed the little moments in life a lot more than he did. And like when that was taken away from him and you see like him starting to connect with Ricky more and more, like where he's starting to like that he needs that person in his life, and he had come to that conclusion. But he only needs one. He doesn't need multiple people. He just needs one person like that to help bring him joy and things that he rarely feels for himself, like in everyday life. That's not stranded in the wilderness hunting or whatever.
Sam Neill just has like a great "what the hell is happening" face. There's another great one when Sam is just looking at Ricky Baker while dancing in the bush, listening to his Walkman. I think my favorite one though is when Ricky and Hector are hiding from the cops behind like a ridge on the ground, and Ricky is miming that it's like Lord of the Rings. And again, Sam Neill's face is amazing.
Yeah, he's like,
it's like Lord of the Rings.
What the hell are you talking about?
What is this nerd shit?
Nice other New Zealand shout out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Tommy, you got any great Sam Neill faces in this film?
The best, without a doubt, is just the Ricky Baker birthday scene. Just
right.
So grumpy. So, and what I love about him in general is how his character is essentially like the opposite of his just Jurassic Park character, whereas that character was trapped in like the wilderness of kids and just like was very warm and loving and like very caring. This guy's the exact opposite. Where it's like, I can't be bothered with this fucking kid.
Oh shit! I even forgot to say that in the directing. But you remember where he gets lost and he's seeing everything as like food, like the dog is whipped cream and Sam Neill is a giant burger.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But I like when he comes in, you know, he's like a giant burger. He's like, Ricky. It's like, what the hell? I like Sam Neill where Ricky is pissing him off and he goes to fucking hit him. You know, he's like, you little shit. And he kind of lunges for him and falls over and breaks his ankle. I thought that was quite funny. I think it's the only time in the film he really loses his cool, where he's like, you son of a bitch, you know.
Where he just loses patience.
I love Rhys Darby's cameo in this film as Psycho Sam, as you mentioned briefly, Baz. He brings like an incredible intensity, like you truly believe he's absolutely crazy. You know, I love the whole scene where he's saying, wait, I've got an underground bunker. This tunnel leads directly to an underground... Oh, I haven't dug it yet. Yeah, definitely the funniest moment in the film. Plus, like the way he goes completely still, pretending to be dead, then snaps back into the craziness is just amazing to watch. Just such a great physical performance from Rhys Darby.
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly like the over-top zany energy this movie needed towards the end. It just picked it up a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I'd also say Rachel House as Paula. I thought she was excellent, too. It's just like trying to be that sweet and loving government agent, but then as the movie goes more and more, it's like, no, she's got an agenda. You know, she's kind of ruthless, especially like just that TV appearance, the No Child Left Behind thing. And
I love that.
No Child Left Behind.
I was just like, that was definitely a jab at the Bush administration a little bit too.
Yeah. It was so great too. Just like her performance in general. I think she was my highlight of the movie where, like we said right there, where she goes up to him like, Child Protection Services, No Child Left Behind. Just immediately.
Just the way she repeats it on that TV show. No Child Left Behind. No Child Left Behind.
No Child Left Behind.
And the hosts are just staring at her like, okay, we got it. We got it. And that's one of those clips that would have actually gone viral too, where it's just like crazy woman screams on Good Morning Australia and like No Child Left Behind. They're like, okay. Back to you, Phil.
Let's cut the weather.
Breakdown on live TV.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was great.
So, favorite performance, Tommy? What are you going for?
Rachel House, definitely. She just was so over the top and zany. That was in a great way, and especially in the end where she's just like flipping off Ricky and she's getting so pissed off trying to just like throwing the megaphone at him and stuff. And she makes like a good villain in the way that she's just a villain that's just on a power trip.
Yeah.
And just in a hilarious way.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
I would say for me, it's Sam Neill. He has to, Julian Dennison is good, especially for a young actor. But Sam Neill has to carry a lot of the movie just based on his experience. Like, he's just going to have to. I just thought he did a really good job of, like, always keeping that gruff front up, but, like, letting his vulnerabilities out and, like, opening up to Ricky. And, like, I thought that was, like, a really nice performance of his. And he was definitely, like, the highlight performer for me in the movie.
I also do like the kid that played Ricky, and we were talking about that Psycho Sam. I thought he was great. I thought he should have been in it more. Might be Sam Neill as well, actually. Yeah, I thought he was it's a really interesting character.
Yeah, I really like Julian Dennison as Ricky Baker. He just a great, like, rebellious teenage quality with some great heart to it at the end. I can be a bit sniffy on child acting on this podcast, but I thought he was great, to be honest.
Yeah, I think he was a very good very good child actor.
I'll say this for Julian Dennison. I was worried in, like, the first couple of minutes of him, but
Really?
he, like, really warms up to you, like, throughout the movie. Like, you really come to like him as a performer. It wasn't even so much the performance. I think it was more like the character just kind of being that, like, annoying 12-year-old. And I was like, oh no, we're not going this whole route the entire movie, are we? And then he warms to you. You warm up to him, and it builds up throughout the performance.
It could have been easily grating. Like, if it wasn't a wrong kid, it could have just been just an annoying child actor, and just like, oh God, can we just get away from this kid right now? And you'd be feeling like Sam Neill, and that would not make the movie work at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, my favorite performance is Sam Neill. Acting score, haven't seen it. What are you going for?
I think the acting was the best part of this movie. It really made it, really elevated the performances, and just really just made the script work and come off the page more, especially with Rachel House. I'm going to go, Timmy, 8.2 work?
8.2 is good for me, man. Yeah, I think the act, when you have good director and good screenplay, acting is what can elevate those things. And I think the acting does elevate this into another thing where if you miscasted pretty much every role in this movie, it wouldn't work. But thankfully you have somebody like Taika who's true professional and, like, would work with casting agents and make sure that it's, like, the right people for the right parts. And it's also a testament to him as, like, a director that he's able to bring in a lot of talented actors and, like, work with them well and keep that balance. So I think acting was, like, the highlight of the movie for me.
Yeah, I really like the acting too. I think the directing is still the strongest element, personally. Should we go, like, 8.7?
Yeah, okay. I think that seems fair.
Nice. Right, let's add up the scores then for Hunt for the Wilder People. So, Hunt for the Wilder People gets a score of 49.3. So, pretty good. Pretty good. I have a feeling this could be a tight one. Haven't seen it podcast. What is your pick for Taika Waititi films?
So we're going with Jojo Rabbit, the 2019 movie with Roman Griffith Davis, Thomas and Mackenzie, Taika himself, Rob Wilson, and Scarlett Johansson. Great movie.
Nice.
And Sam Rockwell. So just a little tidbit before, I had seen this movie a couple times in theaters, and I was mentioning this to you guys before. In AMC in New York City at the Lincoln Center, they did, like, a impromptu Q&A with Taika Waititi for this movie.
Yeah.
It was, like, the Wednesday before. It was, like, on a Friday. This was, like, the Wednesday before the movie, before the thing. Like, I see an advertisement. Like, there was no seats booked. I was like, oh, this is odd. You would think, it's Oscar nominated, like, people would go. So I got seats, and I went. The Q&A was before the movie. So he was like, don't ask anything really too specific about, like, anything spoiling this movie for anybody in the audience who hasn't seen it yet. And I was like, okay, well, I think this kind of nulls the impact of a Q&A, because usually you see a movie and then you ask questions about it afterwards. But it was very clearly like, well, I can't do this at 9:00, but I can do it. I could do it at 6:30 if that works for you guys. Like, that was very clearly like, you guys, somebody messed up, like, delivering the message to him that there was going to be a Q&A about this. And there's just one woman being like, this movie has such important messaging about acceptance. How can I get my kid to watch it? He's like, I don't know your kid. Like, I have no idea. Like, just show it to them. I don't know.
So why did you pick Jojo Rabbit for Taika films?
For me personally, I was the one who picked of the two of us. I think it was one of my favorite movies from 2019. It just has a message of just, like, accepting other people and just really learning other people's differences and just, like, getting past the boogeyman or, like, the prejudices that your society really gets apart in there. And the ending of the movie, I think we'll get to it, is fantastic. And one of the parts I love it too, just the soundtrack in general, just how zany it is, but it still has emotional beats where, like, I'll admit I cried at some points during this movie, even on my third rewatch.
Yeah, I'm not sure it makes me cry, but it's definitely very emotional at certain points. Yeah,
I also like how it really punches down at the Nazis full tilt from the beginning of the movie, like right when you're introduced to Jojo putting on his little Nazi uniform or whatever, and then it's just the joke of Hitler, which is Taika. He's playing Hitler, imaginary friend of Hitler. And I like how throughout the movie, like, he'll offer Hitler, or Hitler will offer him a cigarette. It's like, well, Hitler didn't smoke, right? Like, Jojo doesn't really know anything about Hitler, and he's showing that and, like, illustrating that in very little ways. And it's just he's been brainwashed through a school system that this is what you're supposed to believe in. Like, you know, even right when they get to the little Hitler youth camp or whatever, right? Like, it's like, you know, the Allies on all sides are about to invade us and this is over. But hey, you know, we're going to run a little camp here with Sam Rockwell. I just think they're always the joke. And I think that's, like, a really powerful way to just be like, nah, this is 80 years later. Like, fuck them.
Yeah, obviously.
Like, they're a joke. Like, don't treat them seriously. And it helps, you know, we mentioned with Hunter, the last movie, it's that little levity that he does in, like, fairly serious situations that I think really helps, like, bring this kind of a story to a wider audience and tell a different kind of a war story.
Yeah, definitely.
That you don't always see during the World War II period.
Yeah, it's definitely a very rare film, this one. Certainly when it came out, it was very controversial. A lot of people didn't really know how to react to this type of film. It's one of these films where a lot of people give it, like, a 5-star review or a 1-star review, and I really respect films like that.
Very divisive.
Rather than films that are kind of like, it was fine. I prefer the films that take massive risks, even though some people are like, yeah, it's incredible. No, this is terrible. You know, I just love those type of films. I think it's always a success if you have that, personally.
I would agree.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And it's one of those things that the second time I saw this in theaters, I was telling my friends, this movie's great, you gotta go see it. And then one of the people who took to the screening was like, what did we just watch? Like, what did you just drag me to see? So it's just, you kind of see, or like, yeah, it's definitely not for everyone.
So what happens in Jojo Rabbit?
I guess I'll start. So basically, Jojo Rabbit is the story of Jojo, or Johannes Blitzer. He's a young German boy, and he's a member of essentially a Nazi youth party. And he has an imaginary friend that's Hitler, played by Taika Waititi in the most broad way possible. And he pretty much idolizes Hitler and the Nazi party in general. And when he's alone at home one day, he discovers Elsa Kor, a teenage Jewish girl that's hiding between the walls of his mom's attic. Jojo's terrified because of the prejudices. He thinks that, like, oh, like, you know, we got to take care of this. But his mom doesn't know, but his mom pretty much just tells him just, like, to be a better person and everything like that. And generally, he gets to know Elsa over and over with conversations talking about stuff. And he finds out that his mom is anti-Nazi, hands out freedom flyers, and he finds his mom hanging at the gallows in a public square. He's devastated, he has a blow up with Elsa, tries to stab her. He breaks down in tears, and after she comforts him, his beliefs towards Nazism, like, pretty much quickly shift. He starts seeing that, like, oh, this is a bunch of bullshit. Like, what am I doing here? And then Hitler's suicide happens. The Allies pretty much invade his hometown. Towards the end of the movie, Jojo is saved from executed by a fire squad by Sam Rockwell at the last moment. And he's fearing, now that everything's done, Elsa will leave him. So he tells her at first Germany won the war. And he realizes how terrible it was for him to say that. So he forges a letter from her husband, claiming that he and Jojo found a way to smuggle her to Paris. And so after Elsa confesses that her husband died of tuberculosis the previous year, Jojo tells her that he loves her. And she says that he loves him as a brother. And they essentially... He gets rid of his imaginary friend Hitler, tells him, fuck off Hitler, which is a great line. At the end of the movie, Elsa and Jojo go outside. Elsa realizes the truth, slaps Jojo in the face, and then they dance because now they realize that they're free. And Elsa said earlier in the movie, first thing I want to do when I'm free is dance. So they dance to David Bowie.
So, initial reactions, Boaz, do you like this one? Hate it, love it?
Yeah, no, I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I really like it. I think, again, a lot like Hunt for the Wilder People, it's pretty hilarious at times. There's some real laugh out loud comedy. I think it's certainly the comedy to begin with. There's an adjustment period you got to make, I think, with what's going on with the humor. But I think once you're into that, it really works really well. So I really like this one. I wouldn't say it's Taika's best film, but it's definitely up there.
I think they do a good job at the beginning with when he does like the Beatle mania, Hitler mania, where they do "I Want to Hold Your Hand" in German, and he's getting hyped up to go to Nazi camp or whatever, and they do a very good job of never showing like Hitler's face, but they show like how the people were really possessed by him, like just through the title introductions. Like I think that's a nice way to be like you got to realize like people are indoctrinated, and you associate the song like "I Want to Hold Your Hand" with like Beatlemania, of them coming to the United States and people just waiting outside airports and things like that as they just like kind of march in front of them. I thought that was a nice way to like kind of bring the levity, the humor, but he does a good job of never making the Germans intimidating. They're all the Nazis, like Sam Rockwell, Rebel Wilson, Alfie Allen. They're all complete jokes like the entire way through the movie.
Yeah.
And I could see it could take for, I guess, probably like the four of us would probably watch enough movies so that things like this probably don't really offend us or, tickle a nerve. But if you're maybe a more casual audience member watching a movie like this,
possibly,
I could definitely see there being an adjustment period to the humor.
So directing then, there's great comedy in the directing with Jojo and Hitler, like when Jojo decides to run really fast with like imaginary Hitler. There's great use of like slow-mo. You see Taika as Hitler doing his best crazy uncle dancing, I guess you would call it. As Jojo takes the grenade from Sam Rockwell, he's like, what the hell are you doing? Most of the scene is in slow-mo, but when the grenade hits a tree and bounces back at Jojo, he says, shit. And the explosion is at normal speed. And it's just so funny, because everything before that was slow. So it's just a great, comic surprise.
You get that where it explodes. And I thought that was funny because it was so unexpected. And then, as you said, it goes from slow motion to, oh, shit, and just bang. But then it's from Sam Rockwell's point of view from a distance, the explosion. And he's just going to the kids, don't do it like that.
Yeah, don't do that.
No, I just thought that was really funny. Like, oh my god! Yeah, I was kind of creasing up when don't do it like that.
Just immediately just snapping.
Yeah.
And then Hitler passing out right there when he sees it. He's like, oh!
Yeah.
Every time he sees a drop of blood.
Yeah. It passes out.
He gives like the little thumbs up with like his hand all bloody, and then he just...
Yeah, that was funny.
When Jojo has like a colander on his head and needs some encouragement to confront Elsa behind the door, he looks around and the camera just kind of like pans round quickly to reveal Hitler, giving him like motivational gestures. I thought was hilarious too. What are our favorite Hitler comedy moments in this?
Pretty much just him dancing in general.
Yeah.
The way he just shakes his body. Apparently Taika was wearing like a fat suit during this. He just was we don't need to respect Hitler, obviously. Like, we don't even need to fucking make this accurate. We're just going to make him as farcical as possible because fuck this guy.
I also like, what was it, when Jojo and his mother were talking about the war, and she's like, damn it, woman, do you not love your country? And stuff like that. And it was getting really tense. And I just like how Hitler just kind of just gets up and he's like, whoa, he's just leaves the room.
He just leaves the table. Yeah,
he's just like, this is a bit much. That was really funny. One line I really like from him is where he wants to find out advice what to do with the Jew in his wall and what have you. And he goes, what would Hitler do? And then they speak at the same time, and I think, what does Hitler say? He says, burn down the house and blame it on Winston Churchill. I thought that was really funny. Yeah.
I also like the line. It's like when he's like, "What should I do?" He's like, "I don't know. I'm a figment of your imagination."
Yeah.
I love the scene where Jojo finds Thomas and Mackenzie's character Elsa in her hiding place, and it's directed just like a horror film, very much from Jojo's perspective as a little kid. When he opens the door with his knife, there's creepy music, slow lingering shots of this dark room. Then Jojo sees the really scary teenager and says, hi. Then Jojo runs out of the room, and there's great pushing shots of the entrance and Jojo as he waits to see what emerges. Then Thomason grabs the frame of the door, revealing her fingers really slowly, their tentacles, you know.
Yeah.
And then Thomason basically is playing with Jojo a little bit, pretending to be a ghost. There's these brilliant, like, objective, very central shots of Jojo trying to escape before she catches Jojo, just like in a horror film, in a horror film, but specifically a slasher film. You know, in that scene too, Elsa is just being a kid, like playing pretend, but then she turns quite sinister, but still in a fairly playful way. Where Jojo is brainwashed that Jews are very evil monsters, and that's real in that moment for him. So it's just kind of subtle foreshadowing that Jojo just needs to be a kid and enjoy being a kid with, you know, the dancing at the end. But I just love that horror-esque slasher sequence from Jojo's perspective.
The score is like, it's got that, like, the shrieking violins and the string instruments, like it really and like the camera's panning in on him for like when he's like pressed against his sister's bed as like the camera pans in on him. I really enjoyed that. And, you know, you mentioned foreshadowing. I think this movie does a good job with a lot of foreshadowing, right? Like, you know, there's the rabbit parallel of like, he couldn't kill the rabbit, so all the kids called him Jojo Rabbit, but he can't tie the shoes and the bunny lace thing, right? So you always get a lot of shots of shoes and stuff and included, which I think leads up to the most emotional moment in the scene when he finds his mother hanging in the gallows. You see her shoes at first when he's at the pool swimming. You see like the red and white shoes a couple of times.
And also when she what was it, does the dancing with him, and she's like on a wall dancing. So basically he's facing her shoes. Yeah. So you get really accustomed to what her shoes look like. I thought that was a great way to do it. And then she's just revealed via her shoes that she's dead, and you're like, whoa, shit.
Maybe because like I've seen it before, like the scene with Stephen Merchant, which is hilarious all the way through, but like very tense still. Like it blends that humor line and the tension really well. When the Gestapo ends up invading a house like that, you're aware very much that something's happened to Rosie, Scarlett Johansson's character, but you don't see what happens. And then Jojo, he's seen like he follows a little butterfly into the town square, and then he's just crying into his mother's shoes. He's trying to tie the lace, but he still can't do it yet. And then he just sits and like stares up at her for like the remainder of the day. I just think like they do those little foreshadowing and different messages like really well and really effectively, because if your first time seeing it, you don't realize that it's building to that moment. Like all the shots of shoes, you just think it's like a stylistic choice, but it has like a payoff to it.
It's very like subtle stealth directing, I guess. You just think, oh, it's kind of quite trivial directing, I guess, just because she's got nice shoes or something. And obviously the film is established that this symbol of butterflies is a symbol of love from Rosie's perspective, and Jojo as well. So, you know, it's quite a nice scene as it develops, and then when the camera literally tilts up, it hits you like a ton of bricks. You're like, whoa, shit. Her mum's dead. And it's like, wow, it's just really great stealth directing, I think, there.
What I love a lot in terms of the directing is how much they frame it in a kid's eyes. Apparently, one of Taika's like inspirations when he's making this was Rugrats, the Nickelodeon show, because it portrays like violence through the fantastical lens of a child. He said, in a lot of ways, I want to keep some innocence around that stuff, and you can especially see like in the last scene where all the things happening, pretty much like everyone's dying, like Rebel Wilson and everything like that. You slowly see the immersion breaking of like, oh, this is great and glorious, where, you know, you see Rebel Wilson, they give him a gun, and then she's like, oh, I'm out to go out, and she clearly dies, but you don't see her die. You don't see any character get shot in the head, but you see the dead bodies around, and that's pretty much where JoJo's seen the aftermath of the war, and just like the unglorious parts.
I really like the fact that you don't see her face either, because I think otherwise you lose like the tone and accessibility of the film. Because I quite like the fact that this film is just like a 12A in our country, I guess. So I think there's plenty of other films out there that's really shocking, and I don't think you necessarily need that, certainly from a tonal point of view.
It would break the tone, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
It's about the loss of like what you pictured things to be in your head and what you were told and what you were kind of indoctrinated to believe.
Yeah.
And seeing that all just crumble around you as a city completely crumbles around you, your home crumbles around you. I think like it's like parallel in that tone. And if it was more the violence was more glorified, I think it would have been.
Yeah.
I don't think it would have worked
Yeah.
well at all. Also, in that Rebel Wilson scene, like the last one you see her in, like one of the Nazi youths there, she's like, "Now take this and go give that American soldier a great big hug. Okay, you got this. Go."
That was dark.
I was like, that's some dark humor right there.
Yeah. There's brilliant like wide shots to create the comedy and the cutting. Like Rebel Wilson just shuffles along the bench at the swimming pool, just really funny to me. There's a scene where there's loads of wide shots in quick succession where Jojo and Rosie arrive at the school and Sam Rockwell is feeding Alfie Allen food with just a spoon and then cuts the reverse wide shot of Rockwell walking towards Rosie, then immediately knees him in the balls. That there's a scene where we cut to a big wide of a load of clones with blonde hair. That was hilarious.
Yeah, that was weird. Yeah, I like that.
My favorite wide shot is when Sam Rockwell is talking to Alfie Allen and says, "Finkel, I meant we need dogs for when the city is attacked, not actual German shepherds." You know, then cut to 6 actual German shepherds.
I thought you were going to mention that because that was my favorite. That was one of my favorite like visual gags. Yeah, just out of nowhere it cuts to a wide shot of a bunch of German farmers, and you're like, and he's like, I meant actual dogs, not actual, not German shepherds. Yeah, that was really funny.
I also like how they subtly build up the fact that they have a more Rockwell and Allen have a more intimate relationship.
Yeah.
Like as the movie builds, like that German Shepherd scene, "Listen, I'm sorry, you did a great job. I should have been more expressive in what I needed. German Shepherds are a stupid name for a dog anyway."
That was quite nice.
Good. And then like the Heil Hitler scene with the Gestapo is amazing in terms of the cutting. When they get to Alfie Allen's character, there's literally a cut on every single Heil Hitler. It's amazing. I love that scene.
It just gets over the top where it's just like, what, Jesus?
Heil Hitler, Heil Hitler, Heil Hitler, Heil Hitler.
I like when he asks him, like, what are you guys doing here? And he goes, "Oh, nothing much. We were Heil Hitlering the boy, then Heil Hitlering yourself, then Heil Hitlering Mr. Frinkle." So stupid.
I would say, and maybe this is more screenwriting than directing, but I like how in that moment there, because like you kind of get that Sam Rockwell's character is like, he's done with like the Nazis. He's done, checked out of it mentally. When he brings up the Jews thing, like he can repeatedly being like, "What do you do if you get a Jew?" Jojo like continually asks him. And he's like, "Oh, well, we'll have to do this," but he's kind of like very dismissive of it, like doesn't really think much of it. And when Elsa has to pretend to be his dead sister and he hands her the papers and like he's not going to turn her in. And she says like, "I said May 1st. It was May 7th. That's her birthday."
Yeah.
Like they're going to check on us and come back on it. And it's like, no, he was protecting you guys from, like he was just like, "No, we're going to protect this girl. Like there's no need for the Gestapo to," because he probably knew at that point that his mother was dead.
Just even like the shot of the end where Sam Rockwell's like exit in the movie, where he is basically getting dragged off to get shot, where he's grinning at the kid and he's just like, like knows that he does the job of protecting the kid right there, and how subtle it is that like you don't realize at first that he like literally is like taking off the uniform for Jojo, like right there in the moment.
He's like calling him a Jew and throwing him away. Yeah.
So favorite shots, people? You got a favorite scene, Tommy?
So I have to say my favorite shot overall would be Scarlett Johansson's feet hanging from the gallows.
Okay.
That's a weird way to phrase it.
Well, it's the most impactful, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah.
Shot-wise.
Yeah.
It's definitely the moment that they build up to a lot in the movie, and it pays off where it's still emotional, even like third time watching it.
I would also agree with your phrasing of it, Martin, like sort of subtle directing or whatever the hell you called it, where it's just like there are so many shots of her feet. You're like, where is this going? This is trivial. But it is. Yeah. It has a great payoff.
Did Tarantino direct this?
Yeah.
I would say another one that I really liked was the sequence. We mentioned it during the Hitler part where like Taika walks away when the dinner scene's tense.
Yeah, that was funny.
And ScarJo goes into the fireplace and puts the ash over her face to pretend to be the father. I thought that was like a nice little like scene between the two of them, like really establishing the relationship and like showing like she has to play both parts here for Jojo. She has to be the father and the mother, and then they have like the nice little dancing sequence, and they mention dancing a lot through the movie too, so it kind of works towards that build up at the end where they she's finally free, and the first thing they do is just kind of subtly dance a little bit as the movie ends out and the next chapter of their life begins.
One scene I really like is when Captain K finally has his fucking costume and jumps out in slow motion.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he looks epic.
In all his glory.
It's like, I don't care anymore. I'm having my own custom uniform.
Yeah.
That's copyrighted, kid. Don't get any ideas, okay?
I like that,
I think my favourite shot has to be when Jojo sees Yorkie carrying like a mortar near the end. Then Yorkie sees Jojo and he drops the mortar and accidentally sets off the mortar and blows it up a corner shop or something. And Yorkie just says, "Oh God." I just find that scene hilarious.
I like when he's like, "Yeah, Yorkie, I have this Jewish girlfriend. Oh, we can't be worried about the Jews now. It's the Russians, they eat babies. The English, the Americans, they all do this. They're so much worse."
The Russians, they eat babies and they have sex with dogs. The English too. We have to beat them before they eat all our babies and have sex with all our dogs.
It's just so over the top.
I mean, that's fair in Wales, I guess.
He's like, our only allies are the Japanese, and if you ask me, they don't really seem very Aryan.
He had so many great like one-liners. Little kid, little mini Nick Frost.
Directing score, Boaz, what should we go with? I'm willing to go quite high, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm willing to go high. Do you want to go 9?
9, yeah. Straight 9, I think. I think it's just really great. Just how simple the direction is sometimes, just to let a lot of the comedy come through and a lot of the emotional stuff come through as well. There's nothing too fancy, which sometimes there is in a lot of other films like this. Yeah, I really enjoy it. Haven't seen it. What score are you going with, guys?
So I think we're going to echo your sentiments here. Tim, you think a 9 is appropriate here too?
I think a 9's appropriate.
Yeah.
Maybe an 8.9 just to have that a little...
Price is Right little thing.
Yeah, just get the bottom score.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I agree with your sentiments. I mean, there's so many like great little shots and so many great little build-ups to small little moments in this movie that definitely noticed on rewatch a little bit. And just like you said, like the framing of Elsa originally as like in a horror movie type way of just really showing JoJo's world and the eyes through his world. I think they do a great job of it.
Nice. Right, screenplay then. In a lot of Taika films, there aren't many characters, and he commits so much time for the characters to grow. And the relationship between Elsa and Jojo is very convincing for me. Taika generates amazing heart and humor between those two. And it frustrates me that the film is quite controversial when it came out. Like, the film doesn't tackle the horrors of war and the Holocaust appropriately to some people, but Elsa says in dialogue that her parents were taken away at the station and she just ran, and that's the only reference to the Holocaust there. But this film is not about the Holocaust. It's not trying to tackle the Holocaust. It's, satirizing the Nazi party and, what love and friendship really is about. This isn't the most hard-hitting emotionally, I don't think, compared to a lot of other war films, but I like the fact that this keeps a particular tone that is accessible to younger audiences for me because of the humor. You've got child actors in there. I just really appreciate that from this film. And, we've covered, like, on our war films episode, what was it, Come and See? I mean, that is horrific, some of the imagery in that. Do I want to see that again? Hell no.
Yeah.
But it's a one and done film.
It's a very good World War II movie, though. If you really want to see, the Nazis being fucking evil, watch that. But yeah, that's a difficult one.
Yeah. There's definitely some more movies in general where they just take it to a point where it's just, like you said, I'm never going to watch this again. This is way too uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I'm glad I watched it, but, this is just unrelenting.
Absolutely.
But this movie, I think it really gives a good mix with Taika. In general, like between comedy and drama, where there's a lot of movies in this moment that we're talking about that are hilarious, but they also just have some moments that just hit you so hard like a ton of bricks.
I also think this does a good, to add to the point about like love and friendship, it shows like a bubble popping on of like what you were told to believe at like a very young age and how that's not always the case and how like through experience, like through actually experiencing people, like you can really put aside your prejudices because you realize that what you were taught was completely wrong. Like, and I think it's a good way to, like, that's where a lot of prejudices exist. It's just a lack of experience of being told one thing and then never experiencing anything different because you don't run into these people, these things. You're just told to believe one specific thing. So I think that's like more like the theme of it and framing it from a child's perspective. Whereas, if this was more serious, I don't think it would really work well if you had a 10-year-old running around a concentration camp or something like that.
It wouldn't work as much.
It would sicken you to your stomach,
Yeah.
I think that, there's a lot of different things about the impact of the war and what the Germans did throughout it. And I think it's okay to not have to do that. Not every story has to be the same. And the fact that some people just can't see that, that's for them.
Yeah.
But I think for all four of us, it feels like it's like we liked this kind of a story where it's a little more light in that kind of a setting.
I think it gets the general themes of the evils of the Nazis without having to be just so much that it's like, Jesus Christ, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that, there is a child movie that is far darker that's to do with the Nazi. I don't know if you watched The Boy in the Striped Pajamas.
I couldn't do that one.
Yeah, that is really quite uncomfortable. So, I don't think it's a problem if you want to satirize them that they're stupid, but still, lean into... Yeah, and what they believed is evil, and obviously it's incorrect because you have this Jewish character. But I don't think everything has to be gratuitous with its message about how evil the Nazis were. I think it's fine. It's trying to strike this balance of being a kind of a family-friendly kids film with the Nazis suck as well, without having to be just over the top. So.
And I think if this film is trying to address the Holocaust side of Elsa's character and her backstory a bit more, then I think it's just going to distract a lot from the core relationships in this film. Otherwise, this film is going to be 2 hours, 2.5 hours long, and it's going to be a bit of a struggle to get to the end of this. So yeah, I can understand the criticisms, I really do, but there are other films for that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
It's just so important, I think, for Taika that these core relationships are developed really well, and we have plenty of time for these to develop, and I really appreciate that.
I mean, it is a movie; it's not a documentary, and when you're making a film, character and relationships are really important, and there are a lot of movies that do, as we said. So, Taika's keeping that focus tight and direct in the screenplay, I think, really works in its benefit.
Yeah. I want to go back to the montage sequence that you were talking about, Tim, before the title cards. It's really interesting because it's all mainly real archive footage of Nazi rallies of thousands of people cheering and screaming at Hitler. And it's quite disturbing to watch, but obviously this film has I Want to Hold Your Hand by the Beatles playing in German. And you can't help but think, yes, this was what it was like in Nazi Germany for most people. They're seen to worship Hitler like the Beatles, obviously. Obviously, it's not the same thing, but the film immediately puts you into the mindset of a 10-year-old Jojo, that he worships Hitler like a 10-year-old kid would worship the Beatles in the 60s. So it's kind of oh my God.
Yeah.
So it does a great job of just putting you into a 10-year-old's mindset, I guess.
I think the opening montage really just sets the tone for this movie perfectly, just in the jump right there, where it just tells you this is what we're going into. We're talking about, we're analyzing the Hitler Youth for a fanatic expression. This is what it was like, and it's going to be a little over the top too when we talk about this. So it was a really great setting.
As somebody who is a World War II fan of reading the history and stuff, after World War One and the Treaty of Versailles, the German party rose and became this popularity that's so popular because the people were so desperate. They needed somebody to tell them that everything is going to be okay. And they were the only party that effectively did that in Germany. And they were obviously hiding a lot of their true intentions from the people, because by the time this movie's set, most of the German public is just, they're done.
Yeah.
They're done with the Nazi party.
I really love the opening scene for Sam Rockwell's character, who plays Captain Klenzendorf, because you get the sense right away that he doesn't want to be there. The Nazi High Command have sent him to this Hitler Youth camp because of an operation gone wrong. He lost an eye. So that's kind of the only place he can go to or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's this great, fast cutting of him, shooting guns everywhere. And he says, and even though it would appear our country is on the back foot and there really isn't much hope in us winning this war, apparently we're doing just fine. there's a brilliant like silent beat after he says that. So he really doesn't care anymore. So he knows that Germany are probably going to lose the war. So this fuck it attitude, as speaking your mind, telling the truth to a load of kids who are so brainwashed, just generates like brilliant comedy in his performance.
It's great how he just pretty much has given up on life. Essentially, where like he's become Sam Rockwell's become such like a sad sack of a character, where you almost could see like a through line of the movie where he just like keeps on getting demoted. Where I almost wish they went to that, even though it ends up being like he like just was demoted from the training camp, and now he's like, oh, now I'm just doing like the marketing or whatever for this.
I just like how he's always drinking as well. He's always got his whatever. It's just like yeah, whatever.
His little flask. And his relationship with Alfie Allen's the only thing he has carrying him on. And he does get that nice moment of saving Joe and like truly sacrificing. I mean, he was probably going to die regardless, but sacrificing himself earlier to give this kid a chance at life.
And I think certainly there's that little connection there he has with Jojo and Elsa, because obviously, as you said earlier, Sam Rockwell does save her life in the Gestapo scene, and obviously him being gay and him just being a kid and Elsa just being a Jew, there is a slight connection there of minority characters, and it's just actually really quite nice in a way to have a Nazi character with some sense of morality, that, you know, this whole thing is just completely ridiculous and these are people at the end of the day. You know, he's recognizing this is the end, you know, this whole thing is stupid. You know, this film is not like, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys. No, there's this one character that has some morality to him from the Nazi side.
You know, I think they're the only two good Nazis, and really, you know, as you said, they're both like secretly gay. So, I mean, they would be flat out killed if, you know, they were ever discovered. So, and I think they were obviously helping the resistance with his mother for quite some time. So they're very sympathetic in that point of view. I wouldn't say I wouldn't go so far as to say it delves there are heroes on both sides. Like, no, all the Nazi guys, apart from them, are deluded. They're insane.
Oh, he's definitely a bad person, but he's like, I don't care anymore.
No, he's a good person, but I think that's probably because he's been conscripted and he knows this is ridiculous. But you don't just give up at that point because he would be hanged. So I don't really see it like that. I see it. They're kind of the only two good soldiers there. And it definitely doesn't let up the mockery of the Nazi side, or to say, you know, obviously people are press ganged into this nonsense, but you know, the idea is evil.
It's just that like Sam Rockwell is pretty much sympathetic, and he realizes like, you know, this is not a war for you to die in. This is not your time right now. You have your whole life ahead of you, kid. Like you don't need to get caught up in this.
Funny lines, cool lines, people. No stabbing is one. Today, you boys will be involved in such activities as marching, bayonet drills, grenade throwing, trench digging, map reading, gas defense, camouflage, ambush techniques, war games, firing things and blowing stuff up.
Yeah,
it's a great one.
Yeah.
I think the best line, personally, is "fuck off, Hitler."
Yeah, that's a good line.
Simple, gets to the point.
Really sets the message through, you know?
Yeah. Stop offering me cigarettes. I do not smoke.
I'm 10.
Yeah.
Reverse psychology? Don't complicate things. Just use my backwards mind power trick and everything will be fine. I thought it was a really clever one.
Yeah.
One of the soldiers saying, "You and your friends may have heard a rumor that Hitler only has one ball. This is nonsense. He has 4."
Yeah, that was brilliant. I love that one. That was a really good joke.
That was my favorite line.
Yeah. And when he like looks at the Yoo-Hoo Jew book or whatever, and they're just like all laughing at like all the images and stuff, and it's like he was torturing.
Oh, Nathan, yeah.
Nathan or whatever, because like he's obviously developed a crush on who's Nathan. I don't know, just somebody. Like she's just mortified that like of what's actually on the pages of the book. I also thought she had another really good line where Jojo's like, "What are Jews like?" And she's just like, "We're like you, but we're human."
Yeah, that was a good one.
And then like closes her door slowly, like not as funny, but more as like more poignant. Yeah,
I like the one also when she like corners him and says, "You know what I am," and is like, he's like a Jew, and she says Gesundheit. I thought that was quite funny.
Yeah.
I love Rebel Wilson at the end, or during the camp scene where she said, "I had 18 babies for the Fuhrer. It's a great year to be a girl."
Yeah, that was funny. Yeah.
There's a great one from Stephen Merchant as the Gestapo guy. He says, talking about when people call the Gestapo, he's like, "Hello, this is the Gestapo. I believe there is a communist hiding behind my fridge. We go round and investigate, and it's just some mold. So not far off." Tim, favorite line?
I'm between, I said, but like, fuck off Hitler's obviously great. Our only friends are the Japanese. And between you and me, they're not very Aryan.
That's a good one. Yeah, that is genuinely a great line.
Yeah, mine is the four bald Hitler line. So, screenplay score, Boaz, what should we go with? I think this is actually really, really good. It's really bold, really ballsy.
Yeah, for ballsy.
for ballsy.
Yeah, 9.4.
Oh, okay.
I mean, is that too high? Or I just think it's just, you don't get comedies like this. It's really, really daring.
9.2?
And I think it works. It pulls it off. 9.2? Yeah, okay. Haven't seen it. What are you going for screenplay?
We didn't mention this is actually based on a book, apparently, but apparently
it is,
barely. But in that sense, it doesn't really matter as much that they made it more comedic. I think we're going to go pretty similar to you, Tim. Tim, do you think 9's fair here too?
I think a 9's fine.
9.
Yeah. We're still a little bit lower, so we're keeping that edge, being harsher critics, obviously.
Acting then. I quite like the scene where Jojo, played by Roman Griffin Davis, and his imaginary Hitler, played by Taika, and Hitler is trying to make Jojo say the perfect Heil Hitler, but Jojo keeps getting it wrong. Then they say it really fast, and their energy levels are amazing. And this is great, but very disturbing, and it takes you a moment to adjust to the humor. That was kind of the scene I was on about, when you're like, yeah, you need to whoa, this is intense.
Yeah.
About Heilering Hitler, I'm like, wow,
That's how you open up a movie.
Yeah, it definitely punches the audience in the face, kind of thing, and just, this is what the humor is going to be like in this film, and it's definitely a little adjustment period, I think, and then you're right into it, I think. So yeah, just the acting in that opening scene is just like, wow, this is intense.
Yeah.
One of my favorite moments is when he's trying to cheer up Jojo after he was bullied about not killing the rabbit, and he says, "People used to say a lot of nasty things about me. Oh, this guy's a lunatic. Look at that psycho. He's going to get us all killed." And he just does this very simple shrug that makes me laugh every time.
Yeah.
Taika's facial expressions are just so hilarious in this movie. Just so over the top broad.
Yeah.
It's great.
Well, I didn't even talk about this, but I do like the scenes with Scarlett Johansson and Elsa or whatever. I think they're really good.
Yeah.
Where she's up in the basement, just in the attic talking to her. Well, that's quite nice. Especially where she's wondering, what it's like to grow up and be a woman and stuff, because she doesn't think she's going to live much longer, and I just quite like that.
I think the acting is amazing from Taika at the dinner table, where it's quite tense between Jojo and Rosie. And again, there's a big wide shot of the table, and Taika is sat in the middle like it's a Wes Anderson shot,
Yeah.
Very symmetrical. And he looks really uncomfortable, really still, and doing these shifty eyes. Then he mouths at Jojo, "Yeah, I'm going to leave now." And it's brilliant from Scarlett as well, because she's just trying to pretend that he's not there, and Roman Griffin Davis has to kind of acknowledge that he's there, but also pretend that no one's next to him as well. So I thought it was just a really brilliantly acted scene, that one.
Yeah.
I definitely want to give Roman Griffin Davis a shout out, because I think we mentioned earlier, children acting when it goes wrong. Oh boy.
Yeah.
And this movie is told through his perspective. He carries a lot of the story. I mean, he has really great actors to work off of, which does seem to be a trend when he's working with children, is bringing in superb actors to kind of let the child play off of, and the child doesn't really have to carry the entire story on their shoulders. But he does a really good job. I felt like he was very convincing, and he was able to kind of show enough emotions to let it resonate through you.
Yeah, he has to go through a lot of different emotions in this. So some really extreme sad moments and some really euphoric emotions as well. So, yeah, as you say, he definitely carries the film really well.
And like his chemistry with like even like the younger kids, especially with Archie Yates in particular, where they have such a great chemistry that you'd love to see like almost like another 2 or 3 movies of them just like in like almost like a kid buddy cop thing, or like, yeah, it's like a little pair of those two together. That'd be great.
Baby detectives.
Oh, I love it where he's kind of disappointed that he's not Jojo's best friend. Because he's like, Hitler's my best friend, Yorkie. And he goes, oh. And I just love the disappointment. He's like, so unless you're Hitler in a fat boy's, fat boy's costume.
I'm just a fat boy in a fat boy's body.
Yeah.
It's great.
And I just love that little like simple comedy moment when I think Jojo is dressed up in the robot costume, that cardboard red robot costume, and when they hug, he can't really. Yorkie can't really reach round. It's just like, just visually that was quite funny.
Yeah, I really do like the optimism of the actor that plays Yorkie.
Yeah,
he's always just very, very optimistic.
I mean, the fact that he was like the lead in like the new Home Alone, apparently, which was trash, but
yeah, I've heard that. Yeah,
you can see why the kids are so charismatic.
I'd like to just go back to a moment from Scarlett Johansson when she's pretending to be Jojo's dad and herself at the same time, switching roles. And there's a moment when she like bangs the table and says, "Don't you ever talk to your mother like that?" And it's like she's scaring herself, like she's remembering that her husband could have been violent in the past. She takes a moment to get back into the character of Jojo's father, and it's one of the turning points, as I said, for Jojo.
It's got to be frustrating for her too, because her son is so wrapped up in the very thing that she despises the most in this world. But she also knows that like him being so emphatic about the Nazi party is good for her protection, that she's allowing that in her household, right? Like she sees like the benefit of it. Like that felt more of like, don't talk to your mother that way, but it was like a release of just like, kid, what are you doing? Like, why are you a part of this Nazi party? Like, can you really not see it? Like it's just all that pent up frustration. Then they have that nice moment where they dance and she puts him on the chair. It's a very sweet way to reconcile after like an intense moment from a mother, like disciplining.
Scarlett in general, like outside that one scene with like the fist bump right there, but she's just such like a warm mother, and like you can tell that like she like really cares and loves her kid. Where she's telling her kid like Jojo after he gets like the little scar that's like, oh, like I'm cursed of beauty. It's the worst. Like, don't worry, you'll be good. You look great and everything like that. And just such a nice, sweet mother character.
Yeah.
Favorite performances, people? Tim, what's your favorite performance?
I just love Sam Rockwell in general, so I just really loved him in this movie. Playing very dismissive, but like having genuinely growing to care for Jojo as the movie goes on and he interacts with him more, and as the war gets closer to his conclusion, that he realizes he can help this kid like escape this, and that he was my favorite performance. But there isn't a bad performance in this movie, in my opinion. And when you blend that with kid acting and regular acting, I think it's impressive.
Very tight. Yeah.
Tommy?
So I'd say my favorite, honestly, maybe it wasn't the funniest performance, but Thomasin McKenzie, I think, was really the heart of this movie, where she's really the thing that changes JoJo's like mindset and everything like that, and just like so much wistful acting that's just so great and just so like heart wrenching. Where she's like, the first thing I want to do when I'm free is dance, and then when you get that moment in the end of the movie where they finally do dance because they realize that they're free, it hits so well, and then it's one of those things that I get like happy tears when I see that scene. Whenever.
Yeah,
it's just such great acting right there. Just the joy of seeing them. Like, we don't have to deal with this anymore.
I think Thomasin McKenzie is one of these actors where you can see like everything on her face or what's going on inside, emotionally. Got a really bright future. She's amazing, but I think for me, I've got to give it to Scarlett Johansson. I think just that scene where she's playing two characters essentially is just great.
Yeah.
In like kind of a comical way, but very serious at the same time in moments. I've got to give it to Scarlett. Boaz?
Yeah, I think they're all fantastic, and I agree with everything you've said about like the standout performances and stuff. I think my favorite is Thomasin McKenzie. Yeah, you can just sort of see what's going on in her head, and she's very expressive, and she goes through a range of emotions.
It's not like really exaggerated. It's very, very subtle.
I think even one of the things like where she's always very sarky and what have you, and then he reads that like fake letter, and you just see like her face, just like she doesn't have to do much, but she's like she's pissed at what he said and saddened, and like I just quite like little subtle things like that.
I think that her entrance in the movie is so iconic too that like when I was watching it, I was thinking like, this is definitely going to be something that we're going to be seeing in movies for years. That she's just that like magnetic off the screen. Where like she's been in Last Night in Soho since Power of the Dog. I think that we're going to see her like lead a lot of movies coming forward.
Acting score, Bowers. What shall we go for Jojo Rabbit? The acting's really good, but this is not a criticism necessarily. But I think it's not the best element. I don't think. Is that fair? Would that be fair?
Yeah,
I actually kind of agree with you there. If I'm gonna like sandwich it into our other two scores for this, I'd still give it pretty high, but maybe like 8.8 or something. Is that fair? 8.7?
Yeah, 8.6. Was that too harsh?
8.7?
8.5?
Let's 8.6. Okay, 8.6.
Yeah, okay.
Still very, very good.
Did my reverse mind trick there.
And to follow in your footsteps on our score, we're going to give 8.4.
Yeah, 8.4 works. Yeah. The acting is good in this movie, but like you said, the screenplay and directing, I think, is what makes this movie a lot better, even though the acting is great in this movie, too.
Yeah,
it doesn't hurt the movie, but it doesn't stand out as much, I'd say.
Right, let's add up the scores then for Jojo Rabbit. Jojo Rabbit gets 53.1. So Jojo Rabbit wins this episode for Taika Films.
Woo!
It's a win for the guests, Bowers. What's going on? What did we go? What did we do? What's going on?
We didn't get to choose first, is the problem.
Well, it's just courtesy.
Yeah.
Next episode, as The Grey Man is hitting Netflix and hopefully cinemas as well. And we'll be talking Ryan Gosling films for that one. And hopefully we'll have guests again from Back to the Blockbuster podcast. Thank you guys from Haven't Seen It podcast. You have been amazing. Where can we find you in your podcast? What's your social medias and all that?
Yeah, thanks for having us. This was great, and we're glad we won too. So that always helps. But you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok at Seen It Pod. We're available on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. Just search "Haven't Seen It" on your favorite podcast app. And thanks, guys. Next month we have a great schedule coming up, so we're really excited.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Thank you guys for having us on. We appreciated it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, it's been fun. And bye-bye to Boaz. You can stop doing all the other things you were doing during this podcast, so you can rest now. Bye-bye.
Right.
That's it for this week's pod. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell us what your favourite films are relating to the episodes. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast, for Twitter at FVF_podcast. If you do, we'll give you a shout out on the next episode. If you're feeling really generous, you can buy us a one-off coffee at our Buy Me a Coffee account. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off.